Well, here we are. So we have with us a very special guest. Kevin, do you want to tell people who you are?
Thank you. Hi, my name's Kevin Hart. No relation to the other one. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. But we, all three of us went to SIU at Carbondale together. We did some theater and some film stuff and some audio stuff a little bit, and we, helped out, writing and, acting in different capacities. And I since graduating SIU, I've been working at a radio station, WMAY, doing news and weather, and I do a lot of community theater around town.
And well, I guess you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. You want to keep your but where are you at? Because I'm in Chicago, Mark's in New York. Where are you?
I'm in Springfield, Illinois.
Nice.
Yeah.
I knew that.
So are you doing like news?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you doing that? Are you doing like news out of Springfield mostly, and kind of like the surrounding area? Okay.
Yeah, mainly.
So you're not
just local politics and events and that sort of thing.
So I'm really glad that we have Kevin on as you're our first guest.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself before we got on that it's really nice that we have you who work in recording professionally, because this is my first podcast, and we are okay at it. So if you have any wisdom, what do you? I'm kind of curious because I was reading and watching a little bit of your interviews before today. Nice. What's that like being you do arts reviews, you do.
So it's interesting. There is sometimes some live newscasts. I do morning news, so there's usually a live one early in the morning, but a lot of it is pre-recorded. So, it's like recording anything, I guess. But, interviews are fun. It took me a while to get into, actually being decent at doing interviews. We did a little bit in some classes, I guess, in SIU, but I really just, like anything, and much like doing podcast, you just have to do it enough, and not so much trial by fire, I guess, but you really just hone your skills as you do it. And I started out, interviewing a lot of my friends, because I did a theater podcast, and I pitched that to the radio station in February of 2020. So I didn't have a whole lot of content for the first couple of months, but, I talked to my friends. I had some friends that were doing, remote voice lessons, or there were a couple, because we have a lot of people also in the theater community that are really good with video and audio, and so we were able to do some socially distant productions. One of them was Songs for a New World, which is just 4 people, and they filmed that and streamed it. So we were able to sort of make do until we were able to open it up and actually do more live theater. But I started out just interviewing my friends, and then I'm doing a regular segment with Gus Gordon. He's been in Springfield for I think 30-something years. He used to do the local news and the weather, and he's doing theater his whole life. So I was doing a regular segment with him. It's been fun doing it, because it's really, because I've always been sort of in tune with the theater community here in Springfield, but I've really I'm talking with all these people who are doing all different shows, and there's a lot of theater companies in Springfield and a lot of productions that go on. So it's fun to, really sink my teeth into it more than I usually would.
It's funny, for the listeners who don't know, Kevin was my boss for about a year, way back in college, and I don't think I was, a great employee of Kevin.
I wasn't a good general manager, don't worry about it.
No, you were a good general manager.
For the record, I totally forgot about this, so it's not just listeners. I think I now remember that. As soon as he said, I was like, where was this? I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But, I also was like, what? You guys worked for each other? I did not know.
Yeah. Well, actually, so that's, kind of, Kevin like obviously we were as you say, we were all involved in theater, but we had like a student radio station at SIU where we all went, and Kevin was the general manager for as long as I was aware of the radio station when I was there. And then we got involved through like a mutual friend, and I was like for the operations manager for like a year. I didn't really know how to like lead a group of people or run a radio station, but I always really admired that Kevin had like the knowledge of not only how the station ran, but also, I don't know, I mean, just like showmanship and a sense of production.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's really neat now that you're like out. You know, you found a community now, and you're out there plying your trade and using that knowledge in a good way. For a billion, life reasons, and then the pandemic, we all kind of scattered to the winds after school.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to see what you're up to. I wanna ask you, because I would love to do a show just about your knowledge of the thing that you do for a living. But we have to check.
Wait.
Hold on. Okay.
I don't want you
Danny,
to move
Danny
on
wants
yet.
to though.
I want to. You shared your Kevin story. I want to share mine.
Come on,
It's just fair.
Share your Kevin story.
Well, Kevin, I believe we met back in the first acting class I took as a freshman. I know you were a year ahead of me.
Yeah.
And we did Hooters, but
Hooters.
Hooters. But that's not my story. I want to share. I want to share because you are very explicitly the only guest I can share the story, which I think Mark remembers. Is you were in my Big Muddy short right after the 2016 election,
Yes.
but like. That was one of my favorite Big Muddy shorts I ever did because I wrote it the day before the election where I was like, nah, nothing bad's gonna happen. Hillary's gonna win. Life will just go on. So everyone else's one was so depressing. And I mean, to be fair, like, yeah, mine would have been depressing too if I waited a day to write it. But the theme was the movies. And I wrote it was about Star Wars. And you played a guy who really just wanted to go see Force Awakens opening night, but he had to go to his anniversary dinner instead. And some people walk in and spoil the whole movie for him. And I remember writing very explicitly in, like, my note to whoever was running the Big Money at that time, like, please put in, like, a spoiler warning for episode 7 in, like, the program. And they didn't. But you know what? I think everyone had much more bigger things to worry about at the time. But you were great in that. And you were great in a lot of my things I did. But that one's the one that always sticks out to me as, like, that was a good one to do. Especially at that time. I think people needed to laugh.
People needed, nice.
Yeah. I admired that. I don't actually remember that story, but I admire that you went ahead with the lighthearted show instead of... I don't remember that particular Big Money.
I only put all my effort into writing the other one.
I want to mention for the listeners that the Big Muddy was the monthly short play festival that our playwriting... It was sort of like run by the playwriting graduate class at SIU where we all went. So that's what we all
wrote for it, right? And now here we are.
Yeah.
Now here we are.
Is this 5 years later for you? Is this 5 years later?
Yeah, that have been 5 years since I was in school. Yeah.
Oh, you graduated 2017?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so it was like 2 years, really, when we were, because I came in at like 2015. So I was like, it's interesting how there's. I don't want to like keep talking too much about
Time
like how
weird,
our
right?
perception of school worked and all that sort of things.
Yeah.
I did want to jump right. So now we are out here making content. Yeah. We have this show that we release weekly, and it's about Pixar. So the big question is, what has your relationship to the films of Pixar been in your life?
Well, it's I grew up with a lot of them. I mean, I watched Toy Story very recently, which I realized upon watching it, I had not seen it in years and years and years. Really, I hadn't. And when Up came out, everyone was like, "Kevin's a girl," and I was like, That's a good one. That was before Kevin Hart became famous, so I was like, well, can only go up from here.
Do you prefer the Kevin? Do you prefer being referred to Kevin from Up or Kevin Hart, the actor? What is less annoying to you?
I mean, I've gotten used to Kevin Hart, the comedian. I mean, I just realized that I was like, this is the cross I will have to bear. But yeah, I mean, all those. Most of them, I'm pretty sure. If I didn't see them in the theater, I saw them either with my friends or on home video or even streaming. So
the last time you had to.
Yeah. They were all there until the Buzz Lightyear movie, which was in theaters. I didn't watch it. I don't know if it was good.
You're in the right company, because Danny has all these. Danny has this saga. I mean this in a good way, but you really do have so many stories about personal Pixar connections.
Yes.
It's incredible. And I am on the totally other end of the spectrum, where a lot of this show has been me being a lot of digging here for me. So you're in the good company of me being kind of I'm watching these for work now. but I mean it's interesting what we've been able to pull out of them.
If you have to say, and we'll ask this to everyone who's on, if you get on a deserted island and you have to bring one Pixar movie with you, what is it?
I pulled up a list of Pixar movies to remember which ones I've seen.
I swear, I feel like when I ask that question sometime, and our guest is going to say Shrek, and then I'll just immediately kick them out.
You'll be like,
I think Shrek's
hey,
a
what's
good
that?
answer.
Let's see. Monsters, Inc. I like that movie. I saw that one a bunch when it came out.
Monsters, Inc.'s a good one. We had a lot of people fighting for the Monsters, Inc. slot. So,
yeah.
Do you remember how old you were when that came out, Kevin? And I know we could just look at the release date, but I just wonder what your life, where were you at when Monsters, Inc. came out?
So that was 2001. So I would have been, I would have been 7, I think. 7 or 8 when that movie came out. We saw it in the theater. We had the VHS and watched it a bunch. Eventually got the DVD when we got a DVD player. And it was 2001. I mean, it was an okay-ish year until September, and we were in an all-school mass, and the priest ran up and said the towers were hit. And we're like, what are you talking about? Because we were all little kids. It was a big part of all of our lives. I mean, we were all very young when it happened.
How were you around that time about seeing movies in theaters?
My parents took me to a lot of them. I mean, we had a really cool, really cheap theater right down the street called the Esquire Theater, and that's where I saw the first Spider-Man. That's where I saw Scooby-Doo, Tarzan, something else that came out right when I was born that I don't remember. But they demolished it recently, but it was cool. And it was one of the only theaters in town, my dad told me, that actually showed art house and interesting outside of general release movies. They all got bought up by AMC, so you know.
Was that one of those? Yeah. Was that one of those places that would do I had a really cheap theater, which was cheap because after movies made their first circuit in the big theaters, it would get the second run or something, and that's why it was cheaper. Do you remember why it was inexpensive, or just was?
I think it was just it wasn't a chain, and I think it probably was a second run thing. I'm guessing they would instead of throwing the prints in the garbage, they would send them to them and say, here you go, show these. It was a small theater too. It was they had 3 or 4 big screens, but it was. I remember the hallway was as big as my room is, which is not that big, and you just had to sort of walk to the left, and then there was another really short hallway that had doors to all the theaters.
Now, I actually want to ask. This is a little bit of a tangent for our show.
We do tangents a lot, so don't worry about it.
Oh, I love tangents.
No. I think it's relevant, but you'll see. It's you do have a theater background, and I mean, you were just in a production of Newsies.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about your first experience with like movie theaters, but do you remember your first like live theater experience?
Yes, I do. 2003, which the same theater, the Springfield Muni, which is an outdoor theater on the lake, we saw a production of The Wizard of Oz, and I was just blown away by it. All the live special effects and everything. And that's another movie, like, we went and rented it and watched it all the time, the original Wizard of Oz, because, well, it's a classic. And it's really good. And, and my sister got into live theater before I did. And she was doing shows out there and other theaters around Springfield, so I'd always go see her. But I think that was my first real... I did some school plays when I was really young, but, 03, which I guess I was young still. I was like 9, maybe. Yeah, about 9 years old, yeah.
Well, you just remind me of is that I feel like, I don't think either of you know this about me, and it's really not that important, but it's a childhood memory just resurfaced for me, is that my hometown, Valpo, Indiana, was the place of the Wizard of Oz festival for 26 years. I just Googled it. It looks like they ended in 2008. And so one of my first more memorable movie memories, and this will actually come up again on this podcast, because we went to the drive-in where they showed the Wizard of Oz, and then it was followed up by Finding Nemo. So in our Finding Nemo episode, I'll probably talk about it again.
It's another really good one.
Yeah. But it was because, if I remember right, it's because one of the Munchkins came from our town, and so they started putting on a festival when he got old. The actor, obviously, not like the character. I don't know why I'm clarifying that, but
thank you.
It was always that's what I think of when I think of the Wizard of Oz. I think about seeing it at the drive-in as a kid. Obviously not the play version. I don't think I've ever seen that theatrical version of Wizard of Oz, even though I think it'd be really cool.
It's one of those musicals where it is the exact, like, word for word, like, adaptation of the movie, which is cool. They spend a lot of time in Kansas, and I always forget how much time they spend in Kansas, and I'm like, come on, get to the Yellow Brick Road already.
Right before the pandemic hit, I believe I saw it. I'd have to look it up. I saw it in theaters on film, and I was like, oh, this is great. I haven't watched this all the way through since probably when I saw it at the drive-in. Yeah. Whenever that was.
On film, that's cool.
I see so many movies on film. I saw James and the Giant Peach this morning on film.
Nice.
I love Chicago for that.
I'll have to pull it out. I have a 16mm projector, which I spent way too much credit card debt money on, but I own a couple of movies on 16mm, and it's
what do you own? I've never seen a movie on 16mm. I've seen a couple shorts.
It's like 35mm, but like not as good quality. I don't know.
I know, but like, what films do you have? Like, tell me the names of the movies you have.
So I have Octopussy, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, let's see, Gypsy with Rosalind Russell, Funny Girl. What else do I have? I have The Enforcer, which is like...
Those are a lot of, like... I don't know The Enforcer, but the other ones are like, I recognize all these names, so like, wow. I didn't know 16mm prints existed of those.
Yeah, some of them were like, I think some of them were like TV prints, because 16mm was like, until like VHS tape or beta, that was like the easiest way they would have, because 16mm prints are small and they're cheap, and so some of them are like in pan and scan, some of them are cropped into widescreen, and then I think some of them are like, and some theaters did do 16mm because it was cheap, and it would have been a smaller theater. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else I have. The Enforcer, Enforcer's one of the Dirty Harry movies.
Oh, got it.
It was really cheap. I think it was $200. So,
what's the power supply for that like?
It just is a 3-pronged sort of regular power outlet. Just sort of
that's nice.
Plug it in the wall.
Quick question. We're not going to talk about the movie at all because I presume people listening to this don't want to be spoiled on Nope. But have you seen Nope yet?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to talk about the movie, but what's weird about Nope is that the trailer for Christopher Nolan's new movie is attached directly to the film. Like, it comes on after, like, the Nicole Kidman speech and everything. And I don't think that's ever happened before. But when I saw James and the Giant Peach this morning, it still had the trailer for The Hunchback of Notre Dame attached to it.
Yeah, that happens.
Crazy.
Yeah, if you get the print from somewhere, and I think it's more common on 35 because a lot of those come from movie theaters, and they just like, a lot of what happened is, I mean, nowadays it's all digital. You can like, I think they send movie theaters like a thumb drive, or not a thumb drive, but they send them like a hard drive, and after you watch it a certain number of times, it deletes itself. What they used to do is they would just throw that mother in the garbage and just let it sit there. So that's why, like, people have found 35 millimeter prints of like the original versions of Star Wars and like restored them. George Lucas isn't gonna do it.
Yeah, I know there's a good 70 millimeter one that occasionally gets out of the vault to be shown around LA, and I'm always like, oh, I wish that would come here.
Yes, but so I mean, I think it was easier that way. That's how they sent them, because I mean, realistically, with film, you would have to get a bunch of like small film reels that had 2 minutes of a trailer on it, and you'd have to. So I think I guess it would have been more economical and easier to just have the 15 minutes of trailers in front of the movie on one big film reel, and then.
But yeah. So, Kevin, I don't know if you know the rules of our game, but it's okay because I always repeat it for the listeners anyway. Okay.
Hey.
So I publish movie reviews on Letterboxd, and Letterboxd very recently added a thing that allows you to look at what algorithmically is the most similar film to the film you just watched.
Okay.
The Letterboxd game is I will give you the first 5 films listed, and you have to guess what movie I watched. After 2 guesses, I'll give you the year the movie came out. After that, I'll give you the 2 additional movies afterwards, and then you either win or lose by that point.
Okay.
One thing is, we remove films in the same franchise, so when I gave Mark The Matrix a few weeks ago, there was none of the Matrix sequels there. Similarly, directors are removed too, so it's not like Speed Racer would show up if I gave him The Matrix. Okay? We're going to use Mark as a phone a friend type of person here. That's what you said, right, Mark? That's what you're going to do?
I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I just wanted us to both guess and like talk about why we made our guesses.
Okay, I mean, sure. We'll see how this goes. Now, normally I get a list of 10 randomly generated movies and just have you pick a number. However, for the sake of a guess, and we'll do this for whenever we have guests, I just looked at the movies I saw and took the 3 highest grossing films. Okay?
Okay.
And I removed some. I removed a couple that had like the same director or like from the same franchise, but otherwise, all 3 of these movies are... And then I randomly generated those 3. All right. So here is your first film and the first 5 movies of that film. All right?
Okay.
I mean, I won't give you the film. Obviously, you have to guess the movie. Anyway. So, movies are The Candyman Remake, Midsommar, Hereditary, The Skeleton Key, and Antebellum.
And so these are all things you've seen in the last week, correct? Or like roughly since the last time we recorded.
Since we last recorded, so like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. So I'm thinking it's like contemporary horror, maybe artsy a little bit. My guess is Mandy.
Are you going to take that guess, Kevin, or guess something else?
I'm going to guess Lamb.
Lamb? It is not Lamb.
Okay.
Do you want to use Mandy as your second guess?
Or yeah, sure.
Sure. All right.
Just...
What? What, Mark?
Well, it just started, and I just like, we both guessed except we're both wrong or right. I'm just like, Kevin, do you
I gotta keep
of
track
Mark's
of how many guesses you have before you get to the next in. I have to keep track of how many guesses you have, okay? No, it's not Mandy.
Okay.
And what was your first guess?
Lamb was a good guess.
Lamb, I will tell you right now, because this is sometimes I do this for a hint, neither Lamb or Mandy are in the top 25 films listed here. Okay? Yeah. The year this movie came out was 2017. So you are in the right direction that it is a contemporary horror film. Or is it horror film? I don't know. It is contemporary. I'll give you that.
2017.
It helps me to think of like... So I think 2017, I was in school. So this is a horror movie that we must have like talked about when we were like in college with our film people.
Can I also remind you guys of one thing that I think you forgot with your Mandy and Lamb guesses? These are the 3 highest, among the 3 highest grossing films I watched in the last 3 weeks. So, Obviously, not counting new releases, because new releases don't have this thing on there yet.
Okay.
The algorithm doesn't exist for new releases.
Oh, I think I know it.
guess.
But Kevin, yeah.
I'm going to say Get Out.
Yeah,
I also say Get Out.
Okay.
All right,
It's
great. Haha.
I had
Okay,
to remove
cool.
Us from the number one
Okay.
list related. But yes, it is Get Out.
Cool.
All right.
Dope.
Movie 2. Let's move on. All right. This one's a bit tougher. Sex in the City, the film adaptation. Confessions of a Shopaholic. Legally Blonde. 13 Going on 30. And Cruella. I think it's tougher.
This is one of the ones where I think I made this joke a few episodes back, but it's more about how well I know Danny's schedule than like how these movies are all related to each other. I think I'm going to say, I don't know, The Devil Wears Prada.
Kevin, do you have a guess? This time I will have it be like a competition. I'm not going to be like, oh, take Mark's as a guess. But
I will guess something different than how about 101 Dalmatians, the one with Glenn Close?
I will let you
That's
guess
a good
something
one.
else because I remove franchises from it. So
Oh,
101
shoot, I'm
Dalmatians,
sorry.
it can't. No, it's okay. It's okay. You can guess something else. I'm not
I
going to
always
count it
forget
as
these
a
rules
loss.
too. It's taken me basically till this episode to get it right.
Let's see. She's the Man.
All right. I have good news and bad news. She's the Man is not even in the top 25 films. However, I did watch Devil Wears Prada. So it is Devil Wears Prada. So.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right, awesome.
All right.
Woo.
All right, here's the last one. First Man, Gravity, The Martian, the Apollo 11 documentary that came out a few years ago. I need to clarify that because I just say Apollo 11. I don't think that's going to tell you what that movie is.
Yeah.
And then The Right Stuff.
I'm going to guess
Okay.
Transformers Dark of the Moon.
Okay, what's your guess, Kevin?
Shoot, what was that movie? With Ryan Reynolds. Life, is that the name of it? Where it's like Venom, sort of? I don't know.
All right, both of you are wrong, and both of those are not in the top 25. I had to watch that movie, though, for my Marvel podcast, and it was terrible.
Okay.
It was bad. Have you seen it? It's rough.
No.
Don't watch it.
No,
It's
I
bad.
What, Transformers? No, I've seen. I know all those movies are bad. You know what? The one with King Arthur is really something. I mean, it's awful, but it's really.
Oh my gosh, actually, okay, wait, hold on. So, right now, this is I think Transformers 5 is, like, by far the best. Well, okay, first one's fun, but, like, Transformers 5 is, like, an experimental movie that they, like, accidentally let out of the studio because of how bizarre, like, the filming and the production is. What are your
It's
thoughts
so
on Transformers
weird.
5?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I just like comparing it to Samurai Jack because it has a lot of aspect ratio changes, but unlike Samurai Jack, there's no actual rhyme or reason to any of them. It will
They're
be
like
in the middle of a scene.
They'll be like talking, and it'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm like, pick a lane. Oh, that's another thing with short tangent. I'm like, man, I know not every scene is an IMAX scene, but like, if it's in a general release theater, just crop it. Like, I'm sorry.
No, I agree.
God.
Unless it's like a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it doesn't matter where you see it, it's going to have aspect ratio shifts.
No,
But
yeah, that's what I
get
mean.
you saying. Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah. Got it. All right. So since you both guessed, I think when we play with guests, see, we're figuring this out as we go along. We will do this competition as format, but after you only get 3 guesses each. So now I'll give you both the year. All right. So the year is 1995.
95. Miss Congeniality.
Wait,
Okay,
give him the titles again.
All right, the titles were. Oh wait! I think you're jumping back around, Kevin. The titles were First Man, Gravity, The Martian, the Apollo 11 documentary, and The Right Stuff. No, it's okay. I just realized he jumped back to the Devil Wears Prada category. I was like, all right,
okay.
sure, whatever.
You know what? All right, let me. Okay. 1995 space-ish movie. Space adjacent, I guess. Apollo 13 didn't come out in 95, I don't think. I don't know. I have no clue. I'll say Apollo 13. I don't know what year it came out.
Well, I'm going to not let Mark guess because before I recorded, I accidentally yelled, "Oh, Apollo 13." I was like, "Oh, shit. I hope Kevin didn't hear me say that because that's one of the ones I'm using."
Oh, am I right?
Yeah, it's Apollo 13.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. This was the number one movie at the box office on my birthday.
Nice.
July 3rd, 1995. It's a good one to have.
Yeah.
I think my misdirection guesses with space movies were better than my usual actual guesses for movies. I was going to say Contact to again throw off the scent, and I was very proud of that too. But yeah, no, that's you, Kevin, you know more movies than I do. Like, I was very impressed by your guesses.
Yeah, I feel like I could have gone without the box office mandate that I added for guests with you. But I'm going to still keep it in because who knows how our guests are going to be after this. So
I have my own game. This is the game of lists. Now, originally this game was going on the internet and finding some list of movies, some ranked list, and then picking two off of them, and Danny would pick which one was ranked higher. Now, as we've done a few episodes, I've kind of found that this is like me picking some random list that no one cares about, and then Danny telling me why the voters are racist, and then we pick the movies, and it's like, all right, fine, but it's like, I don't know, I want to... Partly, an issue that I was having was a lot of these were based on, like, people's votes about, kind of a subjective, what people think is, like, the best movie in a certain category or whatever. So, I think... going forward, I want them either to be, like, obviously funny, or I want them to be a little more quantifiable. So this week, I brought something that is quantifiable and hopefully a little zany. So, there is a list, but it's not going to be exactly, like, the most of something. So the list I've got right now, I'm on the Wikipedia page for the list of films with the longest production time. And I'm just going to ask some questions about this list. First question is, movies with longest production time, what do you think is the movie at the top of this list?
For the longest production time?
Yes.
Does this list include animated films, or is it just live-action films?
It has animated films, live-action films, American and international movies. It's pretty comprehensive.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a guess, Danny?
I do, but I think it's wrong because I feel like it would be something I would know because I saw this movie recently, but I'm still going to guess it. Is that I recently saw this stop-motion horror film called Mad God that began production in 1981 and just now came out. So I'm going to go with Mad God. Because I know it had a long production time. I do not know if it's the longest production time. Oh, wait. Can I change my vote? Can I change my vote?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to go with The Other Side of the Wind. The Orson Welles film that came out in 2018. Because it was in post-production that long. I'm going to go with that one.
All right.
Kevin? Thief and the Cobbler took a while to come out, didn't it?
That's a pretty good guess, I'd say.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that.
All right. So these were actually all really good guesses. And the answer was The Other Side of the Wind, which is available now on Netflix. You can all check that out. Great job guessing Mad God and The Thief and the Cobbler, because just like 2 spots below the 48-year production time of The Other Side of the Wind, Mad God took 30 years, and The Thief and the Cobbler took 29. Very nice guess.
Are those in the top 3 then?
Top 3. Oh, well, the top 3 are kind of, there's The Other Side of the Wind, The Overcoat, which I believe is an animated movie, which I believe The Overcoat is one of those movies that is made, well, I can just look it up. I believe it is one of the things that's made by, like, painting on glass.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a Russian film. Oh, okay. I can't, like... Yeah, I believe it was painted, but, like, you can go read about The Overcoat, and I think see a bit of it, too. All right, next question. So, I recently saw Nope. I saw it when it came out, and this is going to come out 2 weeks after we record this. So with Nope, as some of you may be aware, it had the preview for Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Now, I think Avatar 2 is known for being a movie with a long production time. On the Wikipedia list for long production times, there is one other movie that has the exact number of years as Avatar 2, The Way of Water, listed for its production time. And, I mean, there are two actually. One of them is a Polish film. The other one is not. I think everyone knows what movie had the same amount of production time as Avatar 2, The Way of Water, but I want to see if you can guess it.
I think I know it too, so I want to see Kevin guess it too before I do.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I have it locked in my brain, what it has to be.
Okay, because see, this is kind of a deceptively difficult deceptively easy question, because it sounds like it could be anything, just any random movie. But no, I guarantee, what is the movie that had the same amount of years of production as Avatar 2?
Food Fight?
All right. Can I
try another guess? Try another guess, which is fine.
But then can I explain it very confidently, so if I'm wrong, it's really funny?
Totally.
Okay.
But one more guess for Kevin, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it's not Food Fight, then. Okay.
It's not Food Fight, but good guess.
Food Fight did take a while, because
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to launder money. They wanted to launder money or something, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the joke about Avatar 2, and when people are like seeing it come out, and they're like,
I really don't know. I have no clue.
all right. Danny, drop the knowledge.
All right. So, I know Avatar, again, encyclopedic knowledge of when movies came out. Avatar came out December 2009. Ergo, production of the film, since it was such a big hit, I have to believe began in 2010, very soon after. It has been 12 years since 2010. Boyhood takes place over 12 years. Yeah.
Yes. So, Boyhood is the right answer. And it sounds like such a bizarre question, but it just absolutely tickles me that Boyhood, which is famous, it's probably the most famous movie on this list for having a long production time, has taken the same amount of years as the sequel to Avatar. So, like, we could have had the story of, like, James Watterson, or whatever his name is, like, growing up and growing old. Who is the lead in that movie? Sam Watterson?
Sam Watterson,
What's his name?
I don't know.
Yeah, we could have, like,
Sam
had
Worthington?
the story of him, like, Sam Worthington. We could have, like, grown
I thought
a child.
Boyhood. I was so confused. I will say, what blows my mind the most about Avatar 2 and how long it took is that it took the exact same number of years. Because I know, obviously, I knew this wouldn't qualify because James Cameron didn't immediately go to work on Avatar after Titanic, but 12 years was between Titanic and Avatar, and then it took another 12 years to get to Avatar 2. And that just feels so crazy to me, because I remember seeing Avatar, right?
Yeah.
But when Avatar came out, it was like, it's been so long, but then it's like, now it's like, yeah, it's been a while, but like, I can remember the entire span of time in between, so whoa.
Next, and this is going to be my last question about this list. So today we're talking about Toy Story, right? And, I mean, I'm sure you can guess that this, it's on the list because it's the first of its kind in a lot of ways, and obviously, which had a longer production time, Toy Story or Shrek?
Shrek, I think, had a longer time. I think because they had, I know because they had Chris Farley, and then they had to redo all of Mike Myers' dialogue, and then he redid his own dialogue because he wanted to do a Scottish accent. And I think that is another movie they had wanted to do for a while, and they were sort of working on it for a long time. I have no idea about Toy Story's production history at all, so I'm gonna guess Shrek.
Yeah, I would say my guess. See, I get what you're saying about Shrek, and I think the thing about Shrek to me that might give it the edge, but to be clear, I'm actually going to say Toy Story, but I'll get to why. But the thing that also might give Shrek the edge is, as far as I know, maybe they were trying to do it in traditional animation, and then they did it in CGI, because it's based off something, as far as I'm aware. But I'm going to actually say a Toy Story, with the caveat that it will be like how, I don't know if Tangled's on that list, but Tangled, technically speaking, Tangled, if you want to like put an asterisk next to it, I believe is the longest in production film, because Walt Disney himself was trying to work on a Rapunzel movie for a bit, but then they put it on the back burner, obviously, until it finally became Tangled in 2010. but that's like a big asterisk next to it because there were so many years that was not being developed. But I'm just going to say Toy Story because I feel like probably from Tin Toy onward, they were trying to make that. And that's about 7 years. You know, like they were trying to make a movie about toys. So I'm going to go with Toy Story personally.
According to the list of Wikipedia, it is Shrek with 6 years and Toy Story with 5. So, well done, Kevin. Well done, everyone. This has been the game of lists. So now, I think we gotta talk about why we're here.
All right, I gotta give my little spiel about Toy Story. Toy Story released in November 1995, just a few months after wee little Danny was born. It is obviously the first ever fully CGI movie to be made. It is a landmark film for a lot of reasons. Fun fact, my other podcast, The Snub Club, will eventually cover it because it did not win a competitive Oscar, even though it got nominated for quite a few of them. It is the only other Pixar movie, only movie we'll cover on this podcast that I will cover on that podcast as well. Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Toy Story. 81 minutes long, 79 minutes without credits. Arguably the most influential film of the 90s, I would say, because without Toy Story, you don't really have computer animation. Because the second computer animated movie ever was Antz. Do you think Antz would cause the entire, animation industry to change itself to try to chase it? No, neither would A Bug's Life. And I know people like A Bug's Life, but it's nowhere near Toy Story.
Yeah, I think if the only, fully CG movie people saw for the first time was Antz, they'd be like, nah, go back to drawing. That's awful. No.
Well, I don't know if you heard did you, you don't have to. I don't force our guests to listen to previous episodes, but I remember in our Brave Little Toaster episode, we had an anecdote that John...
Brave Little Toaster.
Yeah, we did a detour episode on it because...
Well, that came up really fast, and I think we decided to record it a few days before we did, but okay, go on, Danny.
Well, there is an anecdote in it where John Lasseter at the time wanted to direct Brave Little Toaster and pitched it to Disney as a CGI movie, and he was asked, well, will it be cheaper? Excuse me. How much will it cost? And he was like, don't worry, it will cost just as much as your animated movies, nothing more. And that made him lose the pitch because the person in charge of Disney at that time was like, well, if it's going to cost the same, what's the point? Because it needs to be cheaper. That's the only reason I want to do it on a computer. I don't know why I brought that up now, but I do think it is, this is what happens when they all get to make it. Because, as I always disclaim on this podcast, and I will especially now with our guest here, we recognize John Lasseter as a very problematic person who should not be currently working in Hollywood.
Everyone get out. You're looking for the Ocean bingo cards.
Well, I feel like I gotta mention it with our podcast, with having a guest here, because we are going to talk about his direction. I don't want Kevin to feel awkward about possibly, complimenting the direction here or anything, but it's problematic now, but we gotta talk about this movie. It's still Toy Story, right? It is still,
Ooh,
Kevin, drop your...
I just looked him up, sorry. Okay, there we go.
See, this is my thing, Danny, is I think that, I don't know, you have to be in, the world that knows about that, which is not to say that he's not a problematic character, but it's he might never come up in the discussion of the movie.
Or the other person.
I don't even know the other person. Okay. Oh, yes, I do. No, never mind. Kevin, are you talking about the original Brave Little Toaster, which I had never seen, but I watched the second one?
The original Brave Little Toaster, that was on, constant rotation at my house when I was younger.
VHS form?
Yeah, it was on VHS.
You didn't have it on 16mm?
But you didn't...
I would love a 16mm print of it. That'd be awesome.
It's all, yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't really exist in a widescreen format, so it would work well, too. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it all the time.
That's just it. I watched it all the time when I was younger, and I love it. And it's I found a DVD of it 10 years ago and got it, and watched it again. I think it's a wonderful movie, and it's I think people have it's come around as sort of a really brilliant movie in recent years.
I say this, this is another bingo item, but I'm pretty sure the first Pixar movie that I really have strong memories about was Toy Story 2. Everything for me goes back to me watching movies when I went over to my grandparents' house. And I was on the phone with my mom the other day kind of talking about this, and she said that, when I was too young to remember really, I guess, but I would go over to my grandparents' house, and They always wanted to like do things with me. And apparently all I ever wanted to do was eat noodles and sit in front of the TV and watch VHSs. So a lot of these were like Toy Story 2, Home Alone, and I think National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation are some of those titles.
Nice.
And I guess, yeah. Oh, and the other thing was renting Scooby-Doo movies from the video store, because that was when they were releasing like those little like 15-minute the animated shorts, but they were like, what's new Scooby-Doo?
Oh, those ones. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, I have such a traumatic anecdote about Scooby-Doo that I'm not going to drop this episode, but I'm sure will come up at some point on this podcast. About the direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying this because I'm thinking it must have been around that time when I must have been like grade schoolish. You know, it came out in 95, so it must have come to me through video. It got swept in there somehow, probably some video rental, or maybe we did own it. But I probably it was one of those things where it just became part of the soup of images that I was taking in. So that's how long it's been in my life. And I think there was like a long time without it, probably. And then I think I rewatched it maybe twice in the last month because I knew we were doing it for this episode. And then I watched it again this morning to take some notes. So that's my background of watching it.
Should I go? No, well, not you, Kevin. That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, similarly, I remember watching Toy Story 2 on TV a lot. I think we might have taped it at some point, although I don't think we still have that VHS tape. But yeah, I watched that. We had Toy Story, I think we rented it a few times. I think we actually did have it. But that was always, that was a movie that me and my friends, when we were like young, I think we probably had it on. And it was, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if it was the biggest part of my childhood, but I do have memories of watching it. I think I watched 2 at my grandparents' house. I do remember that, sitting in front of that TV. But yeah, I watched the 2 of them, Toy Story 1 and 2, periodically, I guess, when I was younger. Eventually saw Toy Story 3 at the drive-in when it came out, and actually have not seen Toy Story 4.
Come on,
Which
man.
drive-in?
I know.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
There was one in Belleville. We're all kind of from the same area.
In Springfield. It was,
that's right.
Speak for yourself. I'm nowhere near you guys. Sorry, go on.
Well, we all lived in the same space for 2 years.
Yeah,
but,
Route 66. Yeah, it's a Route 66 drive-in.
That happened to me when I went to the drive-in to see Maleficent and Edge of Tomorrow. And, like, obviously Edge of Tomorrow is the better film. And, but the guy I was with didn't want to jump his car till Edge of Tomorrow was done, so I watched the second half of Edge of Tomorrow with no audio, and I was like, why am I still here?
Man, I don't know how drive-ins work. What are you all talking about jumping cars?
So what you do is when you get into the car, so you drive into the movie, and they have a special AM radio signal, and you have to just listen to it on a radio channel, and that runs down your battery if it's there for 2 hours.
Oh,
wait, Mark, you didn't realize this? The reason I say this is because when we did our Knick-Knack episode, I shared an anecdote about how, I just said we saw Finding Nemo at the drive-in, right, with Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
But my dad wouldn't turn on the car because he's like, it's just a short, you don't need the audio. And I was like, it's only 3 minutes, so who cares? But whatever. So Mark, when I showed that story a few weeks ago, you're like, whatever. Like,
well, I thought that was just your dad being like, oh, well, let's just hang out for a bit and just not listen to the audio for whatever reason. But I did. I inferred that it came through a radio channel, but I didn't know you actually had to, like, be ready to restart your car because it was so draining on the battery. I didn't know that there was this, like, danger involved.
Okay, I'm going to tell an anecdote that will lead back to my thing on Toy Story by talking about Finding Nemo for a second. Is that I remember once I went to this, I think I was in 4th or 5th grade. I went to this church function where they were just showing Finding Nemo while all the adults were doing other stuff, like a meeting or whatever. And I remember my friend Brian, I believe it was my friend Brian, who was like, I have this whole movie memorized, want to watch it? I was like, sure. And then sure enough, he had every line of dialogue in Finding Nemo memorized with his back turned to it. And when I was watching Toy Story a few days ago, I was like, I'm a little drifting out of this because I've seen it so much, but I'm pretty sure I could do that. I'm pretty sure I can recite this entire movie along with it as it goes. Because this was my most watched VHS tape as a kid. I can remember at age 4 being hyped for Toy Story 2. And Kevin, you're the only person here who's allowed to talk about Toy Story sequels, because you won't be back here when we talk about the Toy Story sequels. So I won't talk too much about 2, 3, and 4, and the Buzz Lightyear movies. Plural on the movies.
And that's because we have a variety of guests pre-scheduled, not because we don't want Kevin back, which I do.
Yes. To clarify, we love you,
because you're never coming back again, Kevin. So get your thoughts out now.
Okay. Well, if you come back, it won't be for a Toy Story movie. We'll put it that way. It'll be for something else. But yeah. So I wanted to change my name to Buzz. Obviously, Buzz is the coolest character in this movie. Since I've grown up, because I'll talk a lot about Buzz and my relationship with this movie as a kid throughout this episode. As I've grown up, I think Toy Story has always been the one I overlook, because I look at Pixar, and I've said this before on this podcast, it is an emotional studio, and Toy Story 1 very much is not trying for emotion. Although I will say, I think there's something, and I think this naturally comes from being older, and also of how our culture is so nostalgia obsessed in a sense. Yeah. Where at the end of this movie, the last 10 minutes do give me chills now when I watch it. Where he's like, this is the part where we blow up, not today. And like, we get to see that iconic moment of them following the style. And I just get chills watching it, like, yep, this is when history was made, was this brilliant moment at the end of the movie. Where it pays off everything. I think there is an argument to be made that even though I always look over Toy Story as a film, because I do think 2 is better, I think it is a perfectly constructed script that has no fat on it at all. Because it's 79 minutes, but it's
short.
But it still feels like you're getting the full experience. Yeah. But what I also think of, I always make this comparison, which is Snow White. And obviously filmmaking is way different in the 1930s than it is in the 1990s. But even like Antz, right? Like, if Antz was the first one, it would not have stuck. The fact that Toy Story is so good as a movie is just like, they knocked it out of the park first try. And of course, they remade Toy Story so many times. We all know the story of the Black Friday, I assume, where they screamed a version of the movie where all the characters were just so horrible to each other. And they're like, we're going to pull the plug. And so they re-storyboarded the whole movie over the weekend, repitched it to that studio. Like, oh, okay, no. Why didn't you show us this on Friday? You know? Like, but yeah. What were you going to say?
Rewatching it this morning, I felt kind of the same way about the script, that it's intimidating watching the movie and imagining how much must have gone into rewrites, because it is so tight, and you wonder where that came from when you have all this technical stuff going on. And if you do rewrites, it's like you got to bring these actors back into the studio, and the script of animated films is always so fascinating to me, because it's not like, oh, we're going to have all the live action actors on this set and, we'll get some new pages to them this morning. It's like every change is it's potentially like weeks or months of work. So to see something like this where it's like, all right, 3 jokes, plot point, 3 jokes, plot point, love scene, 5 lines, plot point. It's just like, whoa, just watching that. It's like you don't laugh all the time because it's so impressive.
Because you're enthralled with it. I mean, it's a story you care about.
Yeah.
Because my headphones just fell out, but I'm going to put them back in while I'm talking.
That's what happens when you feel strongly.
Because it's very, I also want to say the voice cast in this is stacked, and I forgot how stacked this voice cast is.
We definitely got to talk about the voice cast.
Yeah, we can get into that later, I guess. But yeah. So there's all these.
We're here now.
Okay.
Well,
but,
you say it first, Kevin. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say. You're really invested. Just from the get-go, because everyone plays with, because that's the sort of thing that I guess it's not by any means an original point to say that, and I guess that's the crux of the movie. Like when you were a little kid, playing with your toys, what would your toys do if they were not, when you're not around. And they're and there's all sorts of different characters. There's different there's so many quick visual gags in this movie. Like one of them that I completely forgot about was and another one of my favorite, voice performances, Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head, when he tells Woody to kiss his ass, and he has he has like the lips, and he's just like hitting them against his butt. I'm like that's brilliant. I mean, and like you said, tight movie. It's without the credits, it's like doesn't even make an hour and 20 minutes. But there's so much packed into it, it doesn't need anymore because it has all the big emotional moments and the jokes and the fun that goes along with it, and the horror. Because that I was like, man, I don't know how this movie didn't scar me as a kid with creepy Sid and all these toys, but. Yeah.
It definitely did to me. You mentioned like the iconic moment of them flying, and I think the other moment that I think is iconic is when the spider baby rises up and makes that sound.
Yeah.
I think that's like, it was really interesting rewatching this movie and thinking about like iconic moments, like when the T-Rex yells in Jurassic Park and the banner flies down. That's like, that's the moment. That's the thing that plays during your Disney Vault commercial,
the pan up
whatever
to Buzz.
the Jurassic thing would be.
That's what I'm thinking. The pan up to Buzz when Woody sees him. Yeah.
It's crazy how much of that there is in this movie. It's like the perfect image, and for symbolic and just camera reasons. About the voice acting, I just checked, and apparently this was Tom Hanks' first like major voiceover role.
Well,
and that's amazing.
You think about it, because the thing you need to remember is that celebrity voice acting didn't become popular until 2 years prior, really, when Aladdin came out. 3 years prior, sorry, 1992 is Aladdin. I messed up my brilliant.
Well, okay, all right. I will say we didn't talk about all the SNL alums in The Brave Little Toaster.
Yeah,
but that was a thing.
Phil Hartman's in that. Yeah,
but it's not to the extent that Aladdin comes around and does. And what I always think about, and it's with Aladdin too, but more with this, is that, Tom Hanks shows up in a movie now voice acting. I'm going to be like, oh, that's Tom Hanks. Or Tim Allen, or anyone in this movie, right? Who's like semi-big. But in this, it's like, they've always been Woody and Buzz, so that's just who they are. Like, I have to really listen to find Tom Hanks, even though it is just Tom Hanks' speaking voice. Because it's, like, it's how I know them. It's Woody and Buzz. Toy Story 4 comes out, right? And just a couple years ago, and I'm like, yep, that's just Woody and Buzz there. And then Lightyear comes out this year, I'm like, that's just Chris Evans as Buzz, And has nothing to do with Chris Evans' performance. He's fine, but it's just like, these characters are so iconic and so ingrained in my childhood that they can return so many years later and I don't hear their voice actors.
There's something about I just thinking about Tom Hanks especially, and coming into this, because you know how some people are like really good actors, but they don't sound like voiceover actors. And that's not to say that things are bad, but you kind of know what a voice actor sounds like. Just the way they make certain choices. Like, it's sort of like how you can hear someone do dialogue in a musical versus a play, and like, oh, you're a musical theater actor. And that's the same way it is with voice people. It's crazy to me that Tom Hanks, who was like a live action comic and, I mean, I guess dramatic actor, I might be a little confused on my dates.
He did some dramatic stuff.
Like, yeah, this is around Forrest Gump this year after, So
that's exactly what I'm saying, is like Tom Hanks, it's wild. I mean, he's a live action guy, but he's, at least that I'm thinking of right now, he has created 2 roles which are notable because of the way he delivered them. And then there's obviously Forrest Gump. And then I would say Woody is amazing. And I think that things like You Are a Toy, and I mean, there's other stuff in this, but it's like, it's crazy that this like live action actor came in and delivered iconic line readings.
What I want to say about the You Are a Toy scene very quickly, because you brought it up, and I thought of it earlier when Kevin was talking about his 16mm prints, is that there's this Twitter account that I saw earlier this week where it's like feeder bootlegs from like the past. And there's one they put up recently of the You Are a Toy scene where it's just the audience laughing at it. And it's like, is this so weird to think about, like, this existing like as something new.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Because I saw this in theaters back in, I think, 2009. They re-released Toy Story 1 and 2 as a double feature in 3D. And I obviously had to go see that because, come on.
It's one of those things, it's, you know, how would you have felt when it came out? And would you feel what I felt rewatching it today? Would you just be like in awe of it? Or do you just perceive it as like a comedy action movie?
I think I remember reading at the time a lot of contemporary, like that's what I'd have to look up Avi Rodgers' reviews, so maybe I shouldn't attribute it to him. But I remember there being a very famous quote about it. It's like the marvel of this movie is that you forget that it's revolutionary after 5 minutes and you just enjoy it.
Yeah,
and
it's a rare movie that gets better the more it goes on.
Yeah, that I was gonna say the third act of the last 20 minutes of Toy Story, from Woody talking to Buzz on the windowsill. No notes. I mean, there's no notes on the whole movie, let's be real. But, like, definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one weird thought I had watching this, in, like, how this movie is, in a way, designed to show the merits of CGI, right? Like, because, as I said, like, they were told when they tried to pitch Brave Little Toaster, like, why would we bother doing that in CGI? And one thing that I noticed this time that I never thought of before, which is saying a lot because how much I watch this movie, is how much text there is on the characters that move. Because I think all the time, and even like, honestly, as a kid, the Buzz Lightyear cartoon, right? I remember thinking, why doesn't his thing always say Lightyear on his like badge? It's because that would be hell to animate. Like, it would be terrible to animate that. But this is just like, oh, it's just a part of the model. And I thought about that while watching. It's like, yeah, there's text on all these characters. You know, the sheriff, obviously the Andy boot print, and it's like, oh yeah, this is like a very subtle way to show off this is what we can do. And of course, we've talked about this before, the idea, like, we're going to start with a movie that's about plastic figures, because that's what CGI just looks like right now.
Which is brilliant. I mean, you know, because you notice that, and I know you've both have probably noticed this, you know, in this first movie, they show very little of the humans. They're like, they're in it, you can see their legs sometimes, cool. There you go.
And that's why Sid looks terrifying, but it's okay because he's a monster, and he's the one you see the most of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of been what the previous entries have been like leading up to. Is like there was this one short they do over here that's like, oh, they don't get the human right, but they've like discovered this thing about toys. And then we've also been talking about like the 3D space, how they make jokes like a 2D Looney Tunes cartoon, and then they also have other shorts which kind of explore humor, like visual gags in a 3D space. It's great. It's so wonderful that this movie has mastered both. And also, I was watching this and thinking that what they found about how to make humans not terrifying, that kind of exaggerated style, I think you see pretty well into the 2000s with things. I thought about like Monster House, which is Spielberg movie.
That they could make the horror movie to humans in that one. I mean,
yeah.
But I'm just saying that like they have the same kind of like they're exaggerated in a like a cartoonish way.
Yeah.
And the blueprint for that kind of comes from the humans in Toy Story, which you're right, they smartly don't show that much of.
I think even like one thing I feel like we gotta talk about here. Also, wait, we're not gonna talk about it yet, but jumping just for a quick standard, because I realized I was being too vague earlier. I was not referring to Tim Allen as the controversial figure. I know some people. All right, I just want to have that on the record. I was not referring to Tim Allen.
Oh no, I didn't think that. I didn't know.
Okay, good. I realized that might have been.
I just looked up. You said the director, and I looked him up, and it was like allegations. I'm like, yeah, there you go.
We gotta talk about, because he's so synonymous with the early Pixar style.
Yeah,
Randy Newman. We gotta talk about Randy Newman.
Is Randy Newman controversial?
No. I just realized, like, when I said we gotta talk about it, I was like, oh, that sounds like how, whenever I go like, oh, we have to talk about John Lasseter right now to clarify we don't condone him. Yeah. You know how I said that like in every episode of ours?
Thank God you're not catching the live reaction to me learning that there are allegations against our own Randy Newman.
What?
Friend of the pod. I couldn't deal with that. I thought that's what you were.
I was gonna say,
not
not Randy. Oh.
No, I think Randy's okay.
Randy's fine.
Yeah. No one hates Randy.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that I don't find out afterwards. Because, okay.
We have 2 weeks
here.
for this.
I remember once someone tried to cancel Randy Newman for writing short people. What? Not in my book. We're not canceling him. No, but okay.
What about Randy Newman?
Yes, Randy Newman, very synonymous with the Pixar style early on with the style of music in it, but also just the songs there's 3 songs in this movie. Obviously, You've Got a Friend in Me.
Yeah.
But then the other ones that are always overlooked, Strange Things and I Will Go Sailing No More.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
when they hit.
Yeah.
That first, like, I mean, at the beginning of the movie, that very first, like, tuba and, like, brass sort of of You Got a Friend in Me, that's, like, as iconic an opening as, I mean, at least in my opinion, I can think of. Yeah.
What did you watch this on? I presume...
I watched it on my computer.
On Disney Plus, I assume?
Yeah.
Alright, I watched my Blu-ray, which is the same thing as Disney Plus. But I don't know if you guys noticed, this has the new Disney logo on it because they re-rendered the film in 2000. It's still the same animation. They just re-rendered it so they could run it for their 3D stuff.
Oh, okay.
You know? Yeah, because they had to put out a 3D release. Otherwise, they'd have to, like, do a really bad 3D conversion.
Oh, they'd have to do a diorama? Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so, like, but that's why the movie actually doesn't open with the same music it used to, because it used to have, obviously the classic 90s Disney logo. And, the music would come in over that more in the Pixar logo, which is a little bit of a bummer, but, like, what are you going to do about it? I'm not going to go out of my way to try to seek out the original logos for Toy Story 1. But I agree that the opening music immediately takes me back to my childhood and watching this film. And I feel like the score of the movie is just as good as the songs.
Yeah.
And it gives you such a personality to what this whole franchise is, like, even when I was watching, I'm not going to talk about Toy Story 4 again, I'm not allowed to, so we're going to talk about it eventually, but even when, like, the score came on the opening of Toy Story 4, I was like, whoa, there I am, back to Toy Story. The music is such a part of the audio aesthetic of this film, but yeah, Randy Newman.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't need to be said that Randy Newman is a fantastic composer with kind of a goofy signature voice, even though it's like how it is. But I think a great example of what you're saying, Danny, is how the sailing song, like, is a little mix of him on his piano, and then it also blends with the orchestral stuff that we hear in the rest of the movie. That da 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 da. It's all like it goes back and forth between that, which I thought was really cool on this watch.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great. I talked a little bit. We did about the like horror elements with Sid, and like the tense, frightening music is great too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's even like that little. It plays a bit with like the major and the minor when they're chasing after him, because you see these familiar characters and then also the ones that are just straight up creepy.
Yeah.
Which brings me to something I was thinking about and I wanted to pose to y'all. Compared to current Pixar movies, you said, Danny, you mentioned how they become a little more emotional heartstring pulling. Let's talk about it. In what ways is this like a kid's movie? Because me watching this, and this gets a little bit into how I saw it as a child, a lot of, especially like the Don Rickles stuff, like that's all adult jokes, and I would say those as a kid and not know what was going on. And there are physical gags, but something now, like, you know what I mean though? Like, there are written jokes for kids in some contemporary animations, but it is nearly all kind of classic back and forth humor.
Well, yeah, it's very much because it's this colorful animated movie with all these toys in it. Kids are gonna watch it, and I think it's the classic sort of. A lot of these jokes are gonna go over kids' heads. I did not know until last night, or I didn't remember, that "You Uncultured Swine" comes from this. I just thought that's something people said on the internet, and I was like, oh yeah, they said that in this. And then of course, like Don, because I mean Don Rickles his stand up is like, not couldn't be anywhere near this movie, but yeah, I mean, and there's and like the stuff with Sid is very much like a horror movie, like body horror stuff. And even like there was a one where he's like, "Oh, you don't have a laser. What do you have? Laser envy?" I mean, which like no kids.
That one I never got as a kid. I was like,
nobody
what?
would ever get that. I think, but it's like that with Shrek. There's so many jokes in Shrek that are like very obviously adult jokes.
The difference is though is that Shrek is so based into referential humor that a lot of stuff in Shrek does not hold up. Whereas this, the most referential humor you're gonna get is like, oh, Don Rickles said a line from his act, you know, and like whatever. What I was going to say is very quickly though, because we forgot we named all the great people in this movie voice acting wise. Because obviously Tom Hanks, I think Tim Allen, fantastic in this movie. Really, like it's really funny to think that there was a point in time that Tom Hanks and Tim Allen were given equal billing, but. It's still like he's great in this, like, but also Don Rickles, he's great in this. But I have to give equal credit to Wallace Shawn as Rex.
Yeah,
Wallace Shawn as Rex in this he's
great,
fantastic voice performance.
But just real quick, it's another thing that's not referential humor, but is like perfectly written for the movie humor. I think I mentioned this to you like a month ago when I watched this movie. Is when he goes up to Buzz and says, "I'm so glad you're not a dinosaur."
Yes.
And that's like the thing that Buzz, it's like how, some people like force that kind of dramatic irony in a lot of ways. But I mean, that line is perfect based on everything we know about both of them. And it just like, that's another thing. It's like more amazing than it is laugh out loud funny for me. I'm just like, wow, you nailed that interaction. It's incredible how often that like kind of doesn't work. But go on with what you were saying, Danny.
Well, what I was going to say, because I'm going back to the question of like, how does this play to kids, right? That's what you said. How is this a kids movie? And I think everything you guys are saying are right. But I think as a kid whose favorite character in this movie was Buzz, we cannot get over the brilliant comic invention. And I want to make that very clear because this has been ripped off so many times since this. As far as I'm aware, this is the first mainstream appearance of this trope. The Space Ranger who thinks he is an actual the Space Ranger toy who thinks he's an actual Space Ranger. Because that is really the comedic conceit of this entire film.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, there's that Disney movie Bolt, which is literally just, oh, this TV dog thinks he's an actual superhero. There are so many times we've had like this conceit ripped off. Pixar itself, Toy Story 2 and 3, bring back this conceit in different ways. Like, because it's like, how do we do this character without it? Because it is such a good comedic idea to put this guy in this thing. And in all honesty, let's be real here. One of my thoughts when watching this movie, like when Buzz has this existential depression and like he comes out of it, I'm honestly like, this is a kid's movie, so it's okay he can get out so quickly. Because in all honesty, if we're going from the Buzz Light, which is, I've talked about that at other places, but the Lightyear movie is ridiculous to imagine Andy seeing it in 1995. But let's say that is the Buzz Lightyear, and then immediately Toy Story happens after me. He discovers, actually, you're just a toy. That would, not, get over with so quickly. But, we'll allow it, because it's a kid's movie. Because it's just, you do think he's, going back to the original intent of this film, he's, Captain Kirk, right? And then Captain Kirk was just told, actually, you're just a toy. You need to take care of this one kid. You would not get over that so quickly, but who cares? The comedic conceit of it, the "you are a toy" scene, or it builds to so many great jokes.
When he when his helmet comes off or it retracts, and he's like, "I can't breathe." He's like, "Oh wait, yes I can." Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean and I think you're right. In all realisticness, if somebody realized they're an entirely different being, that would ruin them for a long time. But you do have it quickly, so you have that great scene of them about to be tortured and blown up by Sid, and Buzz is figuring out, he's like, oh, I'm just a toy, and then Woody is finally on his own and not in a selfish way, being like, well, I really was kind of a jerk back there to you, Buzz, and I'm not, and you just have that beautiful moment with him in the milk crate, and yeah.
It's really, that's like, as I said, I think I might have alluded to this earlier, this movie doesn't have like the big Pixar emotional moment, but that is the first seed to getting there in Toy Story like 2 and later on. That is like, without that scene, I don't think the whole movie works. Or executed at I mean, you have to have that scene there, obviously, for the plot to work, but executed at any lower quality than it is, the whole movie doesn't work.
Oh, of course.
But really, like, as a kid, like, I don't know anyone who was my friend. Like, people now are like, oh yeah, Woody's the best. Because as an adult, I think most people do come around to like, yeah, Woody is the main character. He's obviously the best character in this movie. But as a kid, Buzz is both so funny, but he's also cool. Because, you know, at the end, he falls with style. Like, and he gets the rocket. Like, he's the one who saves the day, really. So, yeah, Mark, I think you underestimate the appeal to the kids of what a Space Ranger toy is.
Well, I mean, I had one. It's just we think about kids' entertainment a little differently now. Or, I mean, maybe it's the same, and I'm just, like, completely unaware of, like, what kids think is cool. I had a Buzz toy.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this in another episode. It's, like, the whole movie is about why would you like Buzz more than Woody? But I don't know anyone who had a Woody toy. And
my brother had a Woody toy, but it's because I had a Buzz toy, so like he got stuck with it. So.
Man, that
you got the Mad Catz controller.
I'll just say, maybe this isn't, you know, talking about any specific other movie. There's like no pandering in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I remember what I said to you last week and rewatching this because I want to retract something I said last week. And Kevin, I will get you up to speed, is that last week we talked very briefly about the new Minion movie, which I had to go see with work. And I remember people have referred to the Green Little Men as the original Minions. And I feel like that is, after rewatching, I'm like, no, they're not. They are in one scene of this film. A memorable scene.
But they were everywhere, though.
They were, that's true. They were a marketing machine.
Not as much as Buzz, but yeah, they were not like... anywhere close to I mean the Minions, which has become this like, I mean they're literally everywhere.
Let's be real though, like the difference is that Pixar obviously is a different studio than Illumination. Pixar like kept it focused on the story always, whereas since the first Despicable Me movie, these movies just constantly been like, oh, we have a plot, but then we can cut back to more Minion shenanigans. Yeah. But the Minions is what we know the audience is here for.
Yeah.
Which is smart. I need to watch these Minions movies because intellectually they become more and more interesting to me the more I hear about them.
Watch the first one and the rest of them are that, but worse. It's fine.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think I have the first... I didn't like the first one either, personally. So
there you go. It only goes downhill from there.
Yeah.
Well, you did say last episode that you thought that the actual Minions or Minion analog was the Toy Soldiers, which now I was watching this and I disagree. I think that it has to be...
I don't think I said that, but okay. I really don't think I said that.
I remember it because it was bizarre.
I'm pretty sure I said Little Green Men, and maybe you took that as Little Green Soldiers. Yeah. Maybe. Because that's what the name of the aliens are, Little Green... They're LGMs.
Also, real quickly,
I know
Arlie Ermey as the general, just like, wonderful.
Well...
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say... In general, because, again, we said this already, but I want to just have it for the record as a sentence. This supporting cast is
amazing,
iconic all around. Like, think about, like, I want to, like, put it more into perspective, is that I remember very briefly, it's a very little amount of my life, the time between this movie and Toy Story 2. And the fact that I went into Toy Story 2, excited to see all the characters back, and, like, knowing which characters are which, like, Slinky Dog, right? Yeah, fantastic. Jim Varney. I don't know why I was going to say Blake Varney. Where did that come from? But Jim Varney, fantastic. But, like, every character here is so well... You know, just for the record, we have to mention Annie Potts and John Ratzenberger because I don't want them to feel left out.
Friends of the pod, Annie Potts and John Ratzenberger.
Well, John Ratzenberger will come up multiple times again and again on this podcast. I don't want this to become, like, an episode where I just go, like, oh, this bit's great. But, like, it is a movie that, weirdly to me, I don't really just remember the experience of watching the movie as a kid, but I know exactly where the commercial breaks would come on if I was watching this on ABC. Like, when they pop up, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is where we go to commercial. The one that really sticks out in my mind is here going, like, Mom, have you seen my Sally doll? What? Never mind. And it would, like, fade out on that line to the commercial break. But Because, this is an 80-minute movie, and it has to fit a 2-hour block, so we got to put in a lot of commercials.
Yeah, and guess what? Kids are going to watch the whole 2 hours of it. So
yeah, it was Toy Story. I can't miss Toy Story. Yeah,
What tapes of Barney? Were they long?
No, Barney tapes are 30 minutes, but I mean, I had
the
a
Pooh
bunch
tapes.
of them. Yeah.
I had a bunch of Pooh tapes.
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh. Not scat film.
Yeah.
That's the bad joke.
Thank
you. A little bit of a interesting childhood there.
What a good humor. We gotta break outside our.
We should cut this entire segment from the.
No, I was gonna say.
What are you talking about?
I have a niece. I have a niece who's almost 2.
What does she do?
She just I mean, there's all sorts of different things. I mean, I think she likes The Little Mermaid, which is good. So I'd been able to watch that with her recently. But we do have a lot of streaming services, but we also still have cable TV. So we'll put things on. I mean, if we go to Disney, not the Disney Channel because it's way different now, but whatever they have some Nickelodeon ones that'll have Paw Patrol or something on it, but they have commercials still. And
no, yeah, I remember when I went home a couple times, I just randomly, you're flipping channels at your parents' house, and you realize, oh, I don't have TV anymore because TV is terrible. But, and then you just go, oh, you know what? This SpongeBob episode from, 2003 is on. Sure, why not? I'll watch Nickelodeon a bit to watch some old SpongeBob to kill some time. And then, these commercials come on. They're either, the exact same commercial you saw as a kid for, insurance, or, they are, some bizarre new toy that you're oh, kids still buy toys.
Yeah, but they still have moon sand and,
Yeah.
The weird puppets that you could put in your hands that are also blankets. I mean,
there's a pillow. It's a pet. It's a pillow pet.
Yeah.
But what's your niece's engagement with the movies? Do you just sit wrapped, or is it a little?
When she was younger, sort of. But I mean, she's very and she doesn't just sit there and watch all the time. I mean, she's very active. She's she'll play outside. She likes to play all over the place, different toys. So she doesn't sit there and just glued to the TV.
All right. I feel like we're winding down a bit.
Yeah. Well,
There's one last thing we got to talk about with this movie, because it's where, in my opinion, you should always end your movie talking, which is about the ending. We got to talk about the ending of Toy Story.
Ending's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. Because we really did kind of gloss over both, the Sid's, him revealing Toys Are Alive to Sid, which happens in none of these movies. I feel like I always think about how people talk to me about this once, where it's why... Well, I don't actually like the Aquaman movie, but a lot of people really do. And once someone defended to me as this is the rare superhero movie today where they just threw everything in the first movie, not worried about if they'll get a sequel, because everyone always now holds stuff back for sequels. And I feel like Toy Story does that here, because it's well, once we played this card, there's no reason to play it again. We don't ever need to reveal the Toys Are Alive again to someone else. And then of course we get the great, also separately, the moving catching up to the truck.
Yeah.
Buzz, we missed the truck. All that.
Yeah.
We're not aiming for the truck.
A really fast-paced sequence that still is perfectly paced, where we get the wonderful humiliation conga of Mr. Potato Head constantly getting broken. We get Slinky Dog getting a heroic payoff that still fails. I didn't mention him earlier. I said even the non-speaking characters really fit with the ensemble. RC, of course.
Yeah.
RC is such a big part of it. Yeah, it's just a brilliant third act that emotionally pays off the relationship between Woody and Buzz, while still resolving their, outstanding relationships with both Andy and the other toys. It's just a brilliant...
It's a very, in the same sense of what if toys could talk and did all this stuff. It's a very grounding human moment when they fall into the car and the mom's I told you they were in the car. There they are. What if that happened one day? What if your toys just ran away and came back? I mean, it's so, little things like that.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. And that kind of, it happens throughout the movie, but that's the perfect punchline to it.
Yeah.
I do want to say, and I do want to be more positive on it, is that ever since someone pointed out to me the animation error in that sequence that at the very end. Have you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Woody's and Andy's finger goes through Buzz's back if you like freeze it at a certain time, but once you freeze it, you won't unsee it.
Oh
when
no!
It picks up Buzz on the it's like clipping. It clips through the.
I mean, there's a lot of things. There's yeah, I'll have to look for that. But there's one thing they do that in the Terminator, the first one, where when the Terminator rises out of the ashes, if you look in the background, you can see somebody's hand come up and pull a lever, and to pull him up.
Oh.
But yeah, no, it's always fun to see that because it's very much like, that's maybe the only animation error in the movie, which is like amazing, because
yeah.
Because
it is really like, you only notice it if you've paused the movie ever at that time. But then since, now you know the exact frame you're looking for, now you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, because
we have a little opening and then we talk about the movie for a while. Good episode, and thank you so much, Kevin Hart, for coming on.
Thanks for
Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say thanks for having me. This was fun. I always enjoy talking about movies and catching up with you guys, of course, because I haven't physically. We're over a streaming, but I mean, physically, I haven't talked to you guys face to face in a long time. Just mainly messaging and tweets and stuff. So it was really cool to do this.
We have more in the future. I want to get you back on sometime if it all works out. Would you plug yourself again, please?
Of course.
Yeah.
I have several projects I'm working on. Actually, outside of the radio station, my friend Max and I've known Max. He used to be my neighbor. He's one of my best friends. We actually do a podcast called Too Bad to Watch with the number 2, and we talk mainly about sequels. We just talked about Return to Oz, and Toxic Avenger 4, which never watched that one. Terrible movie. But those episodes are on Apple Podcast, I think. They're at least, we have a Spreaker link, which I can send to you guys if you want to
send it to us, and we'll put it in the episode thing.
I'm going to tell you right now, you ever do an episode on Paul Blart 2, you have to get me on, because I saw that on opening night. Okay.
Paul Blart. I'll have to.
I went opening night to Paul Blart 2, and there's a whole story there that I won't say.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have that. The radio station, I still do Let's Talk Arts and Entertainment, which is a catch-all of things. A lot of it's local Springfield stuff, some local theater things, which it's always fun to talk to people and talk about. If you enjoy theater, you might like it. I also, with that, do segments with Mike Winmacher, who works at the radio station. We do something called Way Out Wednesday, where we just find ridiculous news stories and joke about them. We do an SNL adjacent sort of weekend update thing, which is on my Facebook page right now. And I'm always doing musicals or plays, and they're in the Springfield area, so if you're close, I'd love to see you in the audience, but I can always just love talking about them.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kevin Hart.
Thank
Fantastic.
You. Yeah.
Our
you
stuff
are our
is...
first guest. You have Christianed it, and you've made it a good thing.
I love it.
I'm going
I had so much fun. It was a fun way to spend a couple hours with you guys talking. It's fun.
Yeah.
Wahoo.
Right. Now, we got to see what we're doing next week.
Okay.
Without you. No offense.
Oh, I forgot. I was going to be our stuff is pre-recorded and we'll just end it now. But yeah, right. We have something else to plug.
So, we did have something planned for next week, but as you might remember, I saw James in the Giant Peach this morning. And I was very surprised in the credits to discover that the storyboard supervisor for the film was member of Pixar Brain Trust, Joe Ranft. And so I did a little research after it, and I saw he also did storyboard supervising on another Henry Selick film that's a bit more classic from the 90s, which is The Nightmare Before Christmas. So we are going to do a double feature detour episode next week about Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. So, yeah, come back for that. We won't have a guest because we're talking about 2 movies, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
So,
we're just
we will
knock this out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wahoo!
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Looking for the Ocean, a Pixar podcast, is produced by Mark Young and Danny Vincent. Our original logo was designed by Sarah Knopf.
And you can find us at Facebook at Looking for the Ocean, a Pixar Journey. You can find us on Twitter at Pixar Journey and on Instagram at Looking for the Ocean Pod. You can also email us at lookingfortheoceanpixar@gmail.com.
If you want to know what I'm up to, everything is available on my website, markyoungperformer.com.
You can listen to my other two podcasts, Wise with Ty and Dan and The Snub Club, wherever you can find your podcasts. You can also find me on Letterboxd at Blankmints for all my takes on all of the movies. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.